Torchlight Infinite feels like a game that perfectly fills the gap many action RPG players have been feeling for years. It combines the lightning-fast, screen-filling gameplay of Path of Exile with a much lower barrier to entry and a more clearly structured endgame, while at the same time feeling noticeably snappier and freer than Diablo 4. Still, it's not a perfect game, and it's precisely in comparison with these two giants that its strengths and weaknesses become especially clear. The biggest difference lies in the pace. Torchlight Infinite is extremely fast. Map runs can be completed in under a minute if you build for speed. Many builds focus on large-scale damage, explosions, chain reactions, and massive mobility. Numerous playstyles allow for near one-button gameplay once your build is set. You move through hordes of enemies and the screen practically explodes. This reminds many players of earlier, faster eras of Path of Exile, before the game became more complex and in some cases slower over the years. By comparison, Diablo 4 feels significantly heavier. Combat is impactful and visually impressive, but the overall pace is slower, movement skills are more limited, and that screen-clearing feeling happens less often. Path of Exile 2 is also moving in a more controlled, tactical direction. So if you're looking for maximum speed, constant action, and an almost arcade-like sense of flow, you'll currently find that most strongly in Torchlight Infinite. Torchlight Infinite offers many viable builds that work early on. Almost every hero has practical starting options that let you farm currency quickly and push into the endgame. At the same time, there are more complex, highly optimizable endgame versions. The big difference compared to Path of Exile? You don't need hundreds of hours to understand the core systems. Respecs are very generous up to high levels. Mistakes are forgiving, and the onboarding is much smoother. The game even supports players directly in the interface with build guides, highlighting recommended talents and skills. Path of Exile 2 will likely offer enormous depth again, but also the familiar entry barrier. Diablo 4 is accessible, but in many players' eyes doesn't reach the same build depth or experimentation potential. Torchlight Infinite sits in the middle, far more accessible than PoE, but with more build freedom than Diablo 4. In terms of sheer volume, Torchlight Infinite has less content than the many years expanded Path of Exile. Still, it offers a clear endgame system with scaling difficulty levels, boss progression, and a kind of Atlas-like progression system that lets you adjust rewards and playstyle. This structure is often seen as clearer and more goal-oriented than Diablo 4's endgame, which many players feel lacks long-term motivation. Some voices even consider Torchlight Infinite ahead of Diablo 4 in pure endgame scope. With new seasons, major mechanics are added that resemble Path of Exile's extensive league systems. The Vorak season, for example, combines a deck builder style minigame for modifying monsters with a very free-form crafting approach that allows item rules to be broken. Systems like these regularly bring fresh playstyles into the endgame. Crafting in Torchlight Infinite is comparatively understandable, yet still deep enough to chase powerful endgame items. Additional systems allow items to be further enhanced or given unusual properties. It's less intimidating than Path of Exile's extremely complex crafting, but much more versatile than Diablo 4's more limited system. An auction house makes trading easier, although the UI and filter options can be somewhat clunky. Taxes on sales slow down certain farming strategies but serve to stabilize the economy. The biggest flaw is the so-called pet or packed spirit system. Certain companions can provide loot or mechanic-related advantages, and are sometimes acquired through a gacha-like system. While the effects are not considered game-breaking, they can make specific farming methods more profitable, and thus give paying players extra opportunities. This is clearly seen as a problematic, somewhat pay-to-win adjacent aspect, even though all content can be completed without spending real money. In comparison, Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2 are far more free of such direct gameplay advantages tied to spending. Torchlight Infinite was originally developed with mobile platforms in mind, which was previously noticeable in the UI and visuals. Since then, the interface has been revised, models improved, and readability increased. Still, stylistically, it feels lighter and less dark than Diablo 4. If you're looking for a heavy gothic atmosphere, Blizzard's game is the better fit. If you prefer flashy effects and clear, fast gameplay, Torchlight Infinite is more your thing. Torchlight Infinite is currently above all one thing: an extremely fast, accessible, and seasonally well-supported ARPG that works great as a complement or alternative to Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2. It offers more speed and immediate fun than Diablo 4 and is far more beginner-friendly than Path of Exile, but it reaches neither PoE's content volume nor its uncompromising system depth. Monetization remains the biggest downside. If you want an ARPG where builds explode, maps fly by, and you can have fun without years of system study, Torchlight Infinite is currently one of the most exciting representatives of the genre. If you want absolute fairness with no gameplay-relevant shop advantages or maximum long-term complexity, you'll likely stick with its bigger competitors.